Frontline Conversations, leading the debate since 1984.
Yogendra Yadav could be the most accurate political analyst. He is a phenomenal personality today. He is both he comments on political processes, he analyzes them for us, and he's also a participant in politics because he's an activist, he's been a political worker, and right now, I may sort of say that in my view, he gives you the most incisive insights into what's happening in our country. And in 2024, he turned out to be the phenomenal predictor of the electoral outcome. So I'm very, very happy to talk to my old friend, who I've not met for a decade, I think, but I have phoned you a few times. Mr. Yogendra Yadav, thank you so much for making time for Frontline Conversations.
Thank you, Sabah, for such a generous introduction.
No.
Honestly, after this introduction, the best thing I can do is to keep quiet because I can only ruin my reputation now.
No, but I do believe that is the case today, and it's been actually it's been a process in academics and psephology, and now you are here. You're both on this side and on that side.
Frankly, I'm just a political worker, political activist. And yes, political activists should think as well. And there was time in our country when political activists used to write, used to think. That time has, in a sense, gone. And we are much the worse as a country for that. Because unlike the West, where most of the political thinkers and writers have been in the academia, in our country, much of political thinking has been done by activists, those who are involved in politics. That distinguishes
Okay.
India from West. And with the decline of that tradition, I think our country has lost something of political imagination, understanding, judgment, and shifting of a political thinking from the world of political leaders to the world of academia has been a bit of a disaster, I think.
You've just written a column about this.
That's right, I did.
It'll have some of your friends in academia annoyed, I imagine.
Usual thing. You see, what happens very often is when you make an argument, people look at examples rather than the argument. Now, some of the criticism could be fair. You know, people look at that and say, why no women? Why not someone from this side or that side, etc. And these could be my limitations or my mistakes. The real question is, does it affect the argument? The argument is, which is what I wrote in the Express this week, that our country had a very rich tradition of political thought, primarily out of those who were political activists. Activist thinker was the mode of political theorizing in India. That mode was vibrant in 1930s, 40s, 50s, till 1960.
Yes.
Then it suddenly declines. And within 25, 30 years, it's not there at all.
It's not there.
And this decline is not merely the loss of the world of activists. It is a decline, it's a serious cost for India because our political judgment is shockingly poor today. The politics is bereft of political vision. Political understanding is very seriously defective. So while we all comment on the loss of morals in politics, which is of course true,
Yes, which is true.
but we don't sufficiently comment on lack of loss of imagination, thoughts, ideas. And this is not just ideas of my liking, ideas that I dislike, say even in RSS, which I stoutly argue against and stand against. If you look at the RSS, there's very serious loss of imagination and vision within the RSS. So look at the right, look at the left.
Yes,
There's a very serious decline of political imagination.
In that article, what I found very interesting, because I'm a student of politics and I've studied the BJP and the RSS, is that you mention Ambedkar, Gandhi, and then you mention a lot of socialist thinkers, and you also include Savarkar.
Sure.
And I do think that when I look at the right, that Savarkar is the most significant thinker of the right wing.
Absolutely.
So you mention people who are thinking about.
I include Savarkar, I include Golwalkar. I'm opposed to, I completely
Yes.
disagree with their vision. But if someone were to ask me to design a course on thinkers,
Yes.
I would keep them there. I want students of Indian politics
Yes,
to
yes.
know
I
this
agree
perspective.
entirely.
I
Yeah.
want to keep Jinnah there. I want to keep Mododi there. These are thinkers I disagree with. But their ideas are very important because we should know that. And these are thinkers. I would never say Golwalkar is not a thinker. He's a thinker whose ideas I happen to completely disagree with. But, so there was a time when, what is common to all of them? All of them are into politics. RSS people are into politics. But they are writing, thinking, speaking, not merely about what happened last week
Yes.
and what may happen next month, but about what it might be like 10 years from now, what it was 500 years ago.
Yes.
There is a larger, so they operate
They
with
offer
a
a
bigger
vision.
horizon.
They offer
They
a vision.
offer a vision,
Yeah.
understanding. They come up with new concepts, new categories, new divisions. So much of what was done in Western thought through the academia is being done by practicing political activists in India. It's an involved mode of thinking. And then all of them are incidentally aware of what's happening in the world, are writing about India, but complete awareness of the world. All of them are comfortable with English language, but almost every one of them has one leg in a language other than English, which they are relating to.
Right.
What we have today is a decline in every single respect. Most of our thinkers, theorists, are limited to English language. They actually don't read and write any language other than English. Now, knowing English is an asset,
It's an asset.
but knowing
Yes.
only English is
Yes.
a serious handicap in a country like
Yes.
India.
Yes.
Most of them are confined to universities. Their principal audience is not the Indian public. The principal audience is Western academia, to which they are responding. So we lift some of their very insightful things. We lift some of their completely useless concepts, which have no resonance in India. We are answering their questions. And as a result, we also have a serious loss of political vision.
Yes.
We pick up some trendy Western thinker who changes because their fads change, their fashions change. What does it have to do with me?
Okay. So what is there a vision that you would, I'm asking you, what vision do you think we should have in India? Because you are working in the political field. What is interesting about you, and I'll repeat this, is that you have been the first psophologist who we all knew about, the public knew about. And today, it seems to us that political science is just a group of people who every now and then appear on channels and they predict the next election. It seems to be a very stunted exercise. I'm not coming down on anyone, but you moved out of that domain, even though you did do an amazing prediction of the recent elections. So it just seems to us that people just pop up and just mostly go along and they say that, there will be a one-sided, that's apology. And many of them are friends of mine, so this is not but as an exercise, even politics now, it's just one side wants secularism and now apparently social justice, and the other side does not want secularism. It says it wants social justice. There is doubt whether it really does, but we don't know. Everything is trapped in binaries. Is there something beyond that, since you've thought about these things and you are practicing politics on the ground? You are someone who's doing the field work more rigorously than journalists, academics, and researchers do. So, is there a vision that you're offering?
Two things. One quick comment about political science. When I was in political science, I used to be very, very critical. But to be honest, it would be unfair to judge the discipline by the few faces that we happen to see on television.
Yes, I know. I agree. Yeah.
We have some absolutely brilliant, outstanding minds. I think of Pratap Mehta, I read Suhas Palshikar, read Peter D'Souza, or those who don't write for newspapers that often, Neeraja Jayal, Nivedita Menon. These are
Absolutely. No, I'm not
Hilal Ahmed.
doubting.
So
I'm
there
a
are all
big fan
kinds
of
of.
Mr. Palshikar
So
also.
so that's one thing. But yes, the larger question: what is the vision? I call it. I'm trying to develop that further. I call it India's Swadharma. Now, most of us balk at the idea of Swadharma. The word dharma means to suggest religions, Hinduism, because we know so little about that universe that we've simply turned our back to it. I call it India's Swadharma, which is to say, or in English, you could say the idea of India. Now, it sounds abstract. But if you look at it, my argument is this. that Indian constitution is sacred to my mind because Indian constitution happens to be happens to have inscribed the values from our freedom struggle, which were not accidental. Values of our freedom struggle are values which are drawn from our civilization of the last 3,000 years. So Indian constitution's preamble in many ways is a condensed version of the civilizational values. What we, for me, those three critical civilizational values are Karuna, Maitri, and Shila.
Okay.
All these are three words which you are aware in the tradition. They're not with one religion either. Most of them are actually crystallized in Buddhism. Karuna, which we today call, we think of Daya, that's not, it's a deep compassion. What we today call equality and socialism is actually based on Karuna. Maitri, friendship, fraternity, something that Dr. Ambedkar, really brought into discussion, is the basis of what we call secularism. And Shila is actually virtuous conduct. That underlies what we today call democracy. So democracy, socialism, secularism, the three pillars of our constitution, actually draw upon three absolutely central values of our civilization. That is the idea of India. That is the Swadharma of India. And for me, taking that Swadharma provides the vision. That is the ideology that we need to develop. The Constitution has given it, but it is our responsibility to take it forward. What does it say about the world of climate change? Nothing. We have to develop it.
We have nothing.
How do we face the challenge of contemporary capitalism? The word socialism and Karuna doesn't tell you very much. You need to develop it. So one, you need to develop new policy formulations drawn from these values. Two, you need to articulate these values for new generation in a new language. Every 25 years, you have to come up with a new language. That old language just doesn't work with the new generation. And we've been completely negligent of that. We got, broadly speaking, you and I are from the same generation. I think we are criminally guilty because we took our constitution for granted.
Yes.
And we thought, theek hai, Supreme Court hai, constitution hai, secularism hai, and we each got into our own careers, our family, our own little individual petty pursuits. And this responsibility of taking those constitutional values to the new generation is something we completely neglected. So an ordinary Hindu, educated Hindu, thinks that secularism is an unnecessary concession made for Muslims.
Yes.
Honestly, that's a feeling.
Yes.
What is socialism? ये लोग काम नहीं करते, इनको खामखा कुछ डोल रेवड़ी ये सब दिया जा रहा है. These are the common sense. So who's responsible for this? We are responsible because we never cultivated these values. We never managed to explain to an ordinary Indian that every one of us is a minority in this country, either in terms of religion, caste, ethnicity, language. At the state level, national level, or in your mohalla, every single Indian is a minority. You want to crush minorities? Be prepared. That is your turn sometime. That's a simple thing you could have said. No one said that. About social justice, about reservations. Now, most educated Indians harbor such deep resentment about it, which only reflects our lack of
compassion.
Lack of compassion.
Maitri, Karuna.
But we've never really cultivated these things to give it a new name for every generation. We were negligent.
Well, I mean, one can say that India is unique because of the graded inequalities in our system. So we are actually trained not to be compassionate towards people, but to be apart from them.
Now, you have inequalities all over the world. In America, for example, if I go to US universities, very unjust society, very unequal society, racially divided. Among the educated Americans, there is a sense that I'm privileged. I draw from privileges that I have done nothing to earn.
There is that sense.
So there is that sense.
Okay.
When I go to when you're walking in the US, you find a society that's so grossly unequal and blatant and somewhat. Mr. Trump is a very good example of what that society is like. But the moment you enter universities, you find a certain cultivated awareness of privileges and a sense of moderation. That okay, so you speak to them about women, they would say something sensible, because they're aware of what they have inherited.
Yes.
In India, I find exactly the other way around. You walk on the streets, there is a sense that something should be done for the poor, disadvantaged, and so on. From ordinary people, actually, they do not, even ordinary upper caste poor.
No, there can be a level of compassion among some of them.
Yeah. Enter our universities, enter our most elite privileged places. These are condensed prejudices.
Really? Okay.
I am this, so what? Why reservation? Why this to Kashmiris? What about Muslims? And about women. I mean, the kind of thing educated Indians can say about women is cringeworthy. I mean, I honestly feel, did you never go to school? Have you never learned some basics in your life? So that's the problem. So that all these are our failures. I think you and I, people like us, should own it up and say, we failed to cultivate these values. We took our constitution for granted. We took our freedom struggle for granted, and never late. We should start it now.
No, I agree with you, except could it be that the market has just blown away values, all reasonable values of humanistic values? I mean, since we
market, caste order, patriarchy, all of them constantly work towards diluting these values. So these are perennial influences. But you continue a struggle against them all the time. There's patriarchy. But you talk about just making Indian men aware that preventing rape is not the responsibility of women.
It's in the, our conversation has taken into organic life, but I mean, the point
this is about educating men in this society. I mean, they should have some sanskar. It's not women who need sanskar. Men of this country need sanskar. Boys of this country need sanskar. Why have we not been able to cultivate that? And why do educated Indians speak exactly like their great grandfathers must have spoken? That's our failure. It's our collective failure as a nation. So that this is the swadharma of India. Now, mind you, because before someone else says it, what we have inherited from our civilization has a lot of complete nonsense, which has to be put in a dustbin, which is what our freedom struggle did, frankly. They picked up all the civilizational values.
You're talking about things like
Manusmriti, caste system, or prejudices against outsiders, prejudice against women. All these we have inherited. And it's the job of every generation, every movement acts as a filter. It says, this is what I accept from my past. This I junk. Our freedom struggle was the great filter that we put between our civilizational heritage and our future prospects. So it produced people who were very modern. Gandhi is a very modern person, very modern, and deeply aware and proud of their civilizational heritage. It produces a desi modernity, which is what we need. What we have today, unfortunately, at the time of independence, we were in 1946, let us say, we were politically enslaved, but we were culturally more aware of our independence. Today, we are politically free. Culturally, we are much less free than we were 70 years ago. A certain culture of imitation, of not being aware of our values, etc., has created a vacuum. And BJP has walked into that vacuum. It's a vacuum that people like you and me have created, a cultural vacuum of a modern Indian. खाली डब्बा है, उस खाली डब्बे में ये आके बस तिलक तराजू और ये सब डाल देते हैं.
I remember when BJP came in, it was in a conversation with you, and I heard you or I spoke to you, I don't remember, because you were the first person I heard using the phrase, this is hegemony. When people needed to understand what had happened, 2014 happens, something happens, and you came up with that phrase, and I said, that's it. That phrase explains. We have lived in a situation of hegemonic control, and then suddenly we're out of it. In a sense. Are we out of it?
Yeah.
In a sense. So
glad you remembered that, because the moment you said
I remember that
the word hegemony, tells you something that it's not merely power, it's not merely dominance. And I said post 2014 we had entered a new era, not merely because BJP was electorally dominant.
Yes.
Electoral dominance is one of those
You
things that
gave a
comes
whole
and goes.
construct, which was
So,
very useful.
So we are dealing with state power, political dominance, and cultural and ideological supremacy.
Yes, that was it.
It is this third thing makes
Third
it
thing it
hegemonic.
makes hegemonic.
Because I mean that's political science wisdom drawn from Italian Marxist called Antonio Gramsci,
Oh, yes.
who said that ruling class rules not merely because it has police.
Yeah.
Ruling class rules because it rules your minds.
Mind. Yeah.
This is what BJP did.
You know, you said all this and I remembered it.
Now, what has happened today? I think it's too early for us to say that that hegemony has collapsed.
Okay.
BJP still controls state power, although, well, they are puncture to ho gaye hain,
absolutely.
But so I said it's a power without without a certain kind of complete acceptance. I used an expression for that, Iqbal. So it is state power without Iqbal. They have electoral dominance has been fractured. But do remember, they have spread to Tamil Nadu, they've gone to
Odisha, not
Odisha.
Tamil, I mean, Odisha.
And even in Tamil Nadu, their vote share gain is significant. BJP is a truly national party now. So there's this. In terms of ideological and cultural dominance, I think that is still to be cracked.
You don't think that's being challenged?
It is beginning to be challenged. And in fact, the only one from the opposition who I see challenging the ideological thing is Rahul Gandhi. He's challenging them on an ideological ground.
On social justice?
Exactly. तुम कौन होते हो हिंदुओं के, तुम हिंदुओं के ठेकेदार नहीं हो. Someone needed to say this. Or to say that you're trying to bring back Varnashram system in this country. You know, so that's an ideological. Or on the word monopoly capital was used in the parliament. These are ideological challenges. So, but it's a beginning of just all that. BJP's ideological dominance should not be underestimated because they have, even if you look at opposition leaders who may be sitting on the opposition side, but if you scratch them, their opinions and so on, BJP's dominance would be seen even there. When I speak to, let's say, an ordinary opposition worker on the ground, and I talk to them, let's say, about Muslims, and if that person himself is not Muslim, within 5 minutes, the language they speak about Muslims is BJP's language. It is not the Congress language. It is not the Samajwadi Party language. It's not the RJD language, although they may belong to any of these parties. So there is a deep, this is infiltrated very deep.
Okay.
And it would take a very long time, this detoxification. So to my mind, that's the real challenge.
So the hegemony is still there in the mind.
Ideological dominance is something which needs to be dealt with. It's still there. It's very deep. It's deep for several reasons. A, the sheer propaganda and the nafrat phailai hai.
The television channel.
It's entered so deep that it takes time. Two,
I've noticed today, when rape is in the discourse, because you've had this atrocious incident in Kolkata, and there's been such a disturbing sequence of events after that by the state government, and then suddenly you also have the politics around it. It's so disturbing, and then you have such concern over an incident involving a person from a certain background, while Dalit women continue to be raped in this time frame and nothing happens.
So
then you have an incident in Maharashtra. But so in between all of this, on social media, Mr. Yadav, prominent journalists, what they have done is they have put out an old case of Ajmer Dargah rapes. Now, you wonder about people, and we are not, they have said, do you remember that horrific rape? It is said factually. But I was just thinking, everything is just trying to show that Muslims did it. Even though
the depth to which the media in this country has sunk one day would be taught as a textbook example all over the world of how media can become source of the problem in a country. You know, it's like the Tutsi Hutsu dispute, where radio played such a critical role.
Radio Rwanda.
Radio Rwanda played that kind of a role. Our media has played that role, and they must be held to account for this.
So somebody is trying to say that, no, forget all this Muslims. Do you remember Muslim men of the... So I was just thinking, it's got nothing to do with the news today.
This morning, one of the national dailies carries a front page banner headline saying, and this is not a communal national daily, front page Hindi banner headline about 6 men who were finally convicted after 35 years.
It's the same case.
For
Ajmer. So obviously there's an instruction that go to Ajmer.
Now, those 6 photographs with their names are on the front page. Now,
this is a Hindi daily.
It's a
Hindi daily, and this is the editor of a news agency.
It's a news worth reporting.
Yes,
it is
absolutely
important that something like this drags for 35 years and
Yes,
those criminals are
absolutely.
brought to book after 35 years is something worth reporting. But should that be a banner headline with names and photographs on the front page, just on the day when the whole country is discussing something else?
Something else.
These are things that
These
you
are
need
things we can worry, we can concern, and one could also argue that they just once a television anchor said that if you don't have if you run out of anything, you just do Hindu versus Muslim. That's how I get my ratings. So it could be just that. It could be put some few Muslim names there, you will get greater interest in the story. Dalit rapes do not seem to have any interest. People are not interested.
So the same day something happens in Bihar, in Uttar Pradesh. These are not news.
Not at all.
Now, so at one level, I do not object to politicization of these issues. And the reason for that, Sabha, is something you would understand. I want women's security to be a political issue, because until something becomes a political issue, it gets no traction. No one bothers, no one is interested. So in that sense, I want it to be politicized. I want the Bihar thing to be
The
politicized,
outcomes are never...
Uttar Pradesh to be
But the
politicized,
outcomes,
etc.
this hanging
Sure.
people is...
At least anything, I want environment issue to be politicized. I
That
want
I want.
education to be politicized. Unless anything is politicized, it gets zero attention and zero action. Politicization is not sufficient, but it is necessary to get any attention and the possibility of action on some issue. So I would not say don't raise the Bengal issue. It should be raised. What happened is absolutely unacceptable. And if doctors all over the country stand up and are saying, what are you doing? They're absolutely justified in doing so. I would want similarly the Bihar issue to be raised.
Absolutely.
Uttar Pradesh issue
It's the
to be
same.
raised.
It's just
And
this
the
one-sidedness.
background of the victim, that happens to condition whether it gets any attention or not.
That is what is
unacceptable.
that is the tragedy of the... That's what is so disturbing. First, the event is so disturbing. But there's so many events, children being raped here, and anyway. So I also have now. I want to pull out of the sort of more expansive, and I'm asking a very practical, down to earth question. Is Haryana so well? Haryana's elections are taking place. May I ask you that what do you think could be the likely outcomes, and what are the factors at play in Haryana? Because there would be a huge interest in what can we expect out of Haryana.
May I completely sidestep the question, part of it, which is the predictive part?
Okay.
I've said bus or prediction nahi karna.
Please,
That's not neither my passion nor my interest. Glad you think so. And
well, you did it so
worked.
well.
I did it out of compulsion, honestly. I did not make a forecast of this election because I wanted to, because it was my professional compulsion or my passion. I did it because I think the mainstream media of this country was hoodwinking this nation.
Okay.
And I felt it's my duty. 12 years ago, in 2012, I had said goodbye to election forecasting. I said, I don't want to do it. I had to do it a couple of times. This was one of those exceptional situations because I really think by dinning it day in and out, aega to Modi, 400 par. This was not reporting on election. This was election campaign. And I thought it is my duty as a citizen of this country to puncture this because this was a lie. If it was true, I would have said none of my business to make another forecast step to it. I knew this was untrue. And as a citizen, it was my duty to stand on top of my house and cry as hard as I could, shout, which is what I did. Thankfully, I'm under no such compulsion for Haryana, Maharashtra, and
Okay,
this.
but give us some
the broad thing that you know,
direction.
I mean, the broad look. When BJP got 10 out of 10 seats in 2019, and there was Haryana Assembly election that followed within a few months, as exactly now, BJP secured only 41 out of 90 assembly seats.
Yes.
This time, when they're down to 5, well, you can just do some arithmetic, basically, which is to say Congress starts as a front runner. There's absolutely no doubt. If you look at the kind of people who are lining up to join the Congress, the kind of excitement that you see around, clearly Congress is the front runner in Haryana. As somebody said to me on the street, कि इस बार कांग्रेस को बीजेपी तो हरा नहीं सकती, तो फिर मैंने कहा तो कांग्रेस को अब कांग्रेस ही हरा सकती है.
That has happened many times.
That, as you know, has happened many times. So there are internal issues in the Congress. The only card that BJP has is really the caste card. You know, the Haryana name for that is 35 ek. Now, people won't understand what is 35 ek. It's 35 versus 1. Haryana mythically has 36 communities. And BJP, and so the basic idea is out of those 36, 35 are on one side versus Jat. So basically stoking anti-Jat sentiment is BJP's only card. You know, while BJP manages to present itself as nationalist, national unity and so on, in reality, almost everywhere they play a caste card. Caste card of differences. In UP, it's anti-Yadav. Here, it's anti-Jat. Sometimes it's anti-Muslim. Haryana Muslims are too few to actually play on that.
One area.
एक area में उसमें आप पूरे हरियाणा में politics नहीं कर सकते उसमें. So it's anti-Jat. The challenge for Congress is how does it manage to retain a larger coalition which has supported it in the Lok Sabha election, Jats and Dalits. Dalits have traditionally been pro-Congress. So the Congress's challenge is A, to retain Dalits, B, to get the BCs, what in other places would be called EBCs, you know, the really backward communities, which have very little political representation.
Okay.
So if Congress manages to retain this coalition, Congress would be through. That's the only challenge that Congress has, and to somehow contain its internal disputes.
The internal dispute is between the Dalit leadership and the dominant Congress.
There are factions.
Jat leadership. There are so many factions.
There are factions. There are internal differences. Now, about I guess thousands of applicants have put in application for Congress tickets. I guess it's about 3,000 applications for 90 seats they have.
Oh my God.
If Congress manages to get 1,500 of these 3,000 to campaign for Congress, Congress is through.
And people in Haryana are very vocal. It's not a place where people are quiet about anything.
Absolutely.
It's a state where, you know.
Yeah.
So they will all fight with each other over these tickets.
Yeah, but that's the usual competitive politics stuff. It's just that Congress needs to ensure that the faction fight does not cross a certain boundary.
Threshold.
Yeah, a certain threshold that they have to maintain. And what do they have to offer to communities other than Jat? That's something Congress needs to come out with. If these two things work, then Congress has an upper hand.
And what about the other parties? There was JJP, which is splitting
Look,
away.
JJP
Are there any other third forces there?
There is a third force. There are 5 of them. There is JJP, which was led by Dushyant Chautala, who was the former deputy chief minister. I think it's almost decimated because they were in power with the BJP, acquired a reputation for being very corrupt, and the community is completely against them. Okay. So JJP is almost a non-player. Then you have JJP's parent party, the INLO,
Indian National
which
Lok
has
Dal.
a coalition with BSP. So it's
BSP.
an attempt to get a Jat Dalit coalition.
Okay.
The Jat part of it is not working very well because that's clearly aligned with the Congress this time.
Okay.
But in some pockets they would. And the BSP, although it's a party on the decline,
Line.
has still some small.
Absolutely.
So in a few places, a strong candidate from who has a
Yes,
ticket
yeah.
from this
Who
may
doesn't
be
get
able
from
to
either side.
disturb the apple cart.
Mm.
And then there is Aam Aadmi Party, which had an alliance with Congress in the Lok Sabha election,
Now they
does
don't.
not have an alliance, uh,
Do they have a
isn't
presence?
doing as well as they thought they would be
Hmm.
able to do. Maybe Arvind being in jail and so on has affected them very much.
Hmm.
But still on the border of Punjab, a few constituencies, they could be a factor.
They can be a factor.
But
And they
essentially, it's a two-way.
they will fight on their own. There's no
Of
chance
course.
of an alliance.
No, there's no
There's no chance. So
that's quite
they'll-
formal.
It's a very, very interesting sequence of events because if Congress does well, then you have in Delhi also. Anyway, we'll get to that later. You'll have in
Yeah,
a-
the sequence to my mind is this,
Huh.
that after the defeat
Yeah.
in Lok Sabha, I call it a defeat because
Hmm.
I said that before the elections as well. If BJP is below 303,
Hmm.
it's a moral defeat.
Hmm.
If they're below 272, it's a political
Hmm.
defeat. If they're below 250, it's a personal defeat for the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Which is what has turned out to be.
I know. And imagine
So,
if Odisha had not had this.
then
And then it was, you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So after the defeat, BJP is desperate to come back
Hmm.
for an electoral sign that
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
this was an exception.
Hmm.
So BJP would do anything,
Hmm.
and what's happening in Jharkhand is clearly one of those things that they
Yes.
would deploy to win at least two of these three.
Hmm.
Uh,
Three, you meaning Haryana, Jharkhand, and Maharashtra.
because Jammu Kashmir results will not change the national balance.
Even
of
though
power.
the Congress will do much better.
Yeah, so that's a plus thing.
But that's a
The
complicated
basic
area.
balance
Yes.
is not because of this very uniqueness of the Jammu Kashmir elections, the
Yes.
fact that it's taking place after so long, the fact that it's the first election after 370
Yes.
abolition.
And it's
So
also a union territory right
that's
now.
right. So that's a very, very unique thing. BJP would need to win at least two of these three to correct the impression that their stock is down, that they're on the way down. To my mind, the real final test is not Delhi. Again, Delhi is considered to be unique. It's Bihar. Bihar next year is the final test. If BJP, for some reason, loses Bihar, and it is possible, even now I'm saying it is, notwithstanding the Lok Sabha outcome, notwithstanding BJP, Janata Dal U, NDA massive victory in Bihar in the Lok Sabha election, BJP could lose the Vidhan Sabha election. Should they lose Vidhan Sabha election, that has direct bearing on the central equation of power. Then BJP would be seen to be a sinking ship, or at least to Mr. Modi's leadership. Mr. Modi's government would be seen to be a sinking ship. That's what they're trying desperately to avoid, and that's what the battle of the next 1 year is.
Right. Mr. Yadav, you have taken a very clearly articulated position on the subject which is controversial right now, which is the Supreme Court recently gave a judgment allowing subcategorization of quotas. And it's been a very interesting process since then because you have been you've given out your reasons, you have given data. I have seen those shows when you're showing that Musahars in Bihar are getting nothing. You're talking about the categories within the Dalit community, and you've argued this in an article also. However, Bahujan Samaj Party of Mayawati, which was truly a force for good once upon a time for Dalits. I mean, my family village is in UP, and I once saw that. If she was probably the most significant chief minister that the state could have had, just by the act of a Dalit woman being there, you know. So she has taken a position. There is a young Dalit MP, Chandrasekhar Azad. He has taken a position. And then you have Dalit professor, academic Anand Teltumbe has written an article where he has suggested that the quota within quota would eventually be a step towards dismantling caste-based reservation a goal of the BJP RSS, and then he says it will create divisions and weaken the Dalit movement. So all of this has come just recently. So have you had any rethink on your position, or do you fully stand by it?
There's no reason to rethink, because to my mind, the perspective here should be what will take social justice forward. I am and have been an ardent supporter of social justice. I have been an ardent supporter of caste sensitive affirmative action policies, including reservations. And as someone who has been a supporter of these, I see absolutely no reason why one should not take this one step forward. We have reached a point where we have to take the politics and policies of social justice one step forward. There are many components to that, and subquota happens to be one such thing. And it's not just the SC/ST subquota that I support. I actually also believe that within the OBC, at the national level, there is no subquota. At the state level, no, for
Bihar has.
no, state level, they have quota for state government jobs. But for central government jobs, there is no subquota. And I have been arguing for quite some time that we need a subquota within that as well, because within the OBC, you have dominant OBC communities, landed OBC communities, which are in a position to benefit from that. And then there are artisanal and service community, which get nothing. Similarly, in the case of scheduled caste, there is a very clear difference for which there is ample evidence, census evidence, to show that in terms of educational opportunities, there is a huge gap between some communities which could take advantage, others who have not been able to take advantage. And the reason is not that these communities of the first category were edging someone out. No. When the doors of reservation were opened, some happened to be standing there. They walked.
They were up to.
They've not pushed anyone out. They're not oppressors of the others. It's just a differential access which has done so. If it was a small difference, you could overlook it. But the difference now is so big, so huge. Just to illustrate it in the case of Punjab, because that's where this particular court case started. In Punjab, if you look at two or three dominant large communities of Dalits, there are the Ravidasis, the leather workers, who have 3.05% graduates amongst them, which is lower than the national average of 6%. Now compare them to other communities. There are Valmikis of Punjab, Hindu Valmikis. They are 1.26%, less than half of them. And then there are Majbi Sikhs, who are 0.61%.
I see.
Now, would you not say that this
and
is
Punjab has a
huge
32% Dalit population?
Large Dalit population.
The largest.
Big chunks with such huge disparities. How do you address it? The one way of addressing it was to say, okay, let's make two slices within that. If it's 30%, let's say we make 15-15. In the top 15, you put those half population who have benefited a little more, and in the bottom you have the other half. So the point to remember about the reason why I support the basic decision of the Supreme Court is that the order simply says the states can.
I know.
The order does not say you must subclassify. No.
Yeah.
It gives them the power to do so. It says, however, you should do it on a rational basis, bring evidence, and then do this, which is a very sensible thing.
And then you should have a caste census.
And then you would need a caste census for these things.
Ultimately.
You already have some information. So I find that to be a step which takes social justice policies one step forward.
Right.
I can understand why some people oppose it, because in the case of at least some political leaders, unfortunately, it's directly linked to
their voter.
The vote base. Unfortunately,
so then,
most of the political
saying,
leaders.
Therefore, Mayawati is a Jatav Dalit of UP.
That makes me sad, because Mayawati has been a Dalit icon, not just a Jatav icon. But when on such a critical issue, she comes out what appears to people to be defending the interest of one subsection within Dalits,
What about
That's
Anand
not.
Teltumbe?
No, Anand's case is completely different. It would be completely wrong
It's
to
his
think
academic
of.
conclusion.
No, but I think people don't read the entire article. In fact, what Anand is saying, I read the article carefully because I take Anand Teltumbe very seriously. He's a reflective person. He's not to say someone like him is reflecting the interest of an upper crust of Dalits.
That's
Would be
what
completely wrong.
that's
That's
even
not the
I
case.
know he would
So
not be doing that.
you've picked up. You use one sentence where he say that's where he begins. By the end of the article, his conclusions are actually, he says, yes, there is a deep and serious difference within Dalits. Yes, it needs to be addressed now. And yes, the way of doing it, instead of subclassification of jatis, you should actually identify every family. And families should be subdivided based on their access to education and jobs. Now, I don't know whether the formula would be accepted by others. So, Anand is not closing his eyes to the real and serious issues. And that's my only thing. Anyone who says, yes, it's an issue, yes, we should address it, here is my formula, I'm willing to speak to that person. Subclassification is one way of doing it. Another, there can be another way. We can talk about it.
But I do.
Having said that, allow me to just mention one more thing. There's one aspect of Supreme Court judgment which I have opposed from the beginning.
The creamy layer
which
observation.
Is the creamy layer.
But that's not in the judge. That's an opinion of the judges.
But the trouble is, if 4 judges out of 7 give an opinion, then high courts all over the country will cite that opinion, and it will become a de facto law. So I think it's time that somebody went to the Supreme Court and asked a clarification to say, "My lord, is that your order or is that not your order?"
Right.
So that it then becomes clear. It does not become a legal precedent. That's what I'm worried about. It should not become in, and honestly, this is not the stage to talk about creamy layer within within Dalits. I mean, the OBCs, there has been a creamy layer. There has been a mechanism to address it. The definition should be changed because the definition is too low. It should be a better definition. But I do not oppose the very idea of creamy layer within OBC. In the case of SC, however, it's a very different matter. In the case of
somebody should go to the Supreme Court. You have
to get this clarified. And if the Supreme Court not say this, in that case, the Parliament should step in and clarify that creamy layer does not apply to Dalits. That is a clarification that is a must. Having said it, I think, look, we are, for me, the larger issue, it's not just the subquota happens to be a thing which has become an issue right now, but I think we should be looking at the future of social justice politics. Future of social justice politics will have addressing micro communities within each. There are the EBCs within OBC, there are Mahadalits, there are Pasmanda Muslim. Within Muslim, the Pasmanda issue has to take a national center stage. And then there are DNTs, the issue of the denotified tribes. They are the real Mahadalits of this country.
Yes, absolutely.
No recognition. So social justice politics will, on the one hand, have to move towards accepting disadvantages within disadvantages. Number 2, it has to increase the pie. Right now, reservations are becoming smaller and smaller, and the contest for those public sector jobs are reduced. So you have to address, number 1, the issue of public sector jobs.
Committed to outsourcing anything possible.
It began with the previous government, and it has been practiced by non-BJP governments at the state level as well.
Absolutely.
So it's a serious systemic issue that we are dealing with. And that also relates to the question of private sector. Why is it that affirmative action should not apply to private sector? You need not turn it into reservation. Use other instruments. There are multiple instruments available to state.
But the BJP has suggested it might do it in this budget, no?
Well,
they've sort of given some.
I would welcome any government which takes steps towards extending the ambit of affirmative action beyond the public sector. And then there is this artificial constitutional cap at 50%, which the Supreme Court is willing to relax for EWS, but not for anyone else.
I know.
So that has to be removed. So I'm thinking of a long-term future. And if I look at it from that long-term future point, subquota within SC is a legitimate demand. It is necessary, though for me that is not the centerpiece of my future. The centerpiece has to be expanded.
Because I've taken up so much of it. What is the centerpiece of your future, and how are you? May I ask you that how do you function, Mr. Yadav? How did you were traveling in the field? How is do you repeat that exercise? You are writing, you are giving interviews, you are sharing your time with me, and then so that's what I'm saying. You're both giving illuminating insights into policies, into society, and then you're also going into the field. So how are you functioning? I mean, how did you
Two different things.
decipher the election, the trend in 2024?
Two different things. The first is the bigger question of what is the centerpiece.
Hmm.
To me, sociologically, the
Okay.
centerpiece is bottom of the pyramid.
Hmm.
Indian society is a pyramid.
Hmm.
The top of the pyramid has been captured by the BJP,
Hmm.
which is in terms of caste, class, and gender.
Yeah.
BJP has walked away with the top of the pyramid.
Including private
Yeah.
big monopolies, corporate monopolies.
So in every
It's a
sense,
shocking
yeah,
display
absolutely.
of
The bottom of the
hmm.
pyramid is the biggest social force to defend constitution, republic, and democracy in this country.
Hmm.
So future politics has to be politics of the bottom of the pyramid.
Hmm.
BJP's political strategy has been to capture the top of the pyramid and walk away with a few slices from the bottom.
Hmm.
Mahadalit, EBC,
Yeah.
somewhere this,
Somewhere Valmiki, somewhere
etc.
that.
The challenge for the opposition, or challenge for anyone who wants to defend democracy and republic in this country, is to consolidate bottom of the pyramid. Now, while from the top of the pyramid, there would be ideological dissenters who should always be welcome.
Yeah.
There were whites who opposed apartheid. So yes, we have to they should be welcome. But sociologically, which is the social force that would defend this republic? That's my real concern.
So we've seen a transformation of Rahul Gandhi. You agree with that, right?
Yeah, and this is welcome transformation.
It's a complete transformation because earlier, the many of the so-called Baba log which were around him, they're all sitting in the BJP now. If you look at it, and they're all
personally, the transformation may not be as big as it appears, because I knew Rahul Gandhi 15 years ago and I know him now for the last 2 years. He has remained a very sincere person, connected, and people who are aware of the fact that they have privileges and that they need to, they're sensitive about the fact that I happen to enjoy. You and I also belong to that category.
absolutely.
People who happen to enjoy privileges, but do not use those privileges to accentuate our personal privileges, but actually use those privileges to do something which is just and decent in this country and society. Rahul, in that sense, belongs to those people who is aware of those.
There has been a transformation.
Yeah, the transformation is
he seems
because
to have understood.
He's traveled, he's walked, he's met people, he's hugged them out of the SPG cordon. He's taken his life beyond that cordon. Earlier, he would do it in fits and starts, but the Bharat Jodo Yatra was a transformative moment. This is not just my assessment, that's something he himself says.
There's also a change in the positions of the Congress on caste. I mean, they missed the whole Mandal movement.
Twice.
It happened because of them.
Remember, the first big caste upsurge in this country was late 60s, which not only did the Congress miss, it was actually in opposition to the Congress that it came. Mandal bypassed Congress.
Absolutely.
And it's the third moment and for the first moment where Congress is in the driver's seat. It's trying to be so. So I think there's absolutely no doubt that on the caste question, Congress's position is principally driven by Rahul Gandhi personally. I don't think Congress as a party was so much prepared
Not at all,
for this. He has personally, with determination and resolve, taken the party in that direction, which is welcome because this actually connects to the politics of the bottom of the pyramid. Absolutely. So in a sense, he's taking Congress back to its own social base. And a social base that can defend. For me, the real interest is not so much in a political party being connecting to its improving, expanding its vote bank. My larger question was, what is that? Because the larger issue is how do we defend this republic, which came close to being shut down.
Congress can be a vehicle to defend the republic.
You need a political vehicle, you need ideological positions, you need a social base. At the moment, I would say India coalition in general and Congress in particular is a political vehicle. The bottom of the pyramid is the social base, and Swadharma of Bharat is the ideology which can defend this republic.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yadav. That was a
Delighted.
fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Frontline Conversations. Leading the debate since 1984.